Hello everyone, welcome to Meducate. Today we are going to talk about introduction to medical pharmacology. We will also look at the roots of drug administration in pharmacology. We're going to start with a brief overview in the scope of pharmacology. In short words, pharmacology refers to the science of drugs. It deals with the interaction of exogenously administered chemical molecules with living systems or the interior of the living organisms. Then we will understand what is a drug. A drug is any chemical that can produce a biological response in living systems or in living organisms. In general, medical pharmacology focuses on effective, safe, and rational use of drugs. Let's now go a little bit and look at the major categories of pharmacology. Category number one is pharmacodynamics, which, in other words, we refer to what the drug does to the body, and this includes the healing effects and also the side effects. So basically, physiological and biochemical effects of drugs and their mechanism of actions at organ system, subcellular, and micromolecular levels. Category number two is pharmacokinetics, which in other words, what the body does to the drug. For pharmacodynamics is what the drug does to the body. For pharmacokinetics is now the inverse or the reverse. In pharmacokinetics, we find a lot of effects of the body towards the drug, such as absorption, distribution, metabolism, and even elimination. A typical example is when you take a tablet of Panadol, or commonly known as the paracetamol. So, one of the pharmacokinetic activities that happen is how the drug is being absorbed, metabolized, more specifically, sometimes in the liver, and how it's being cleared or eliminated from our systems. There are very many other branches of pharmacology as well. For example, pharmacotherapeutics. This refers to drug application for disease prevention or treatment. Another one is clinical pharmacology. This is just the scientific study of drugs in a man or in human beings. Chemotherapy is the selective application of toxicity for microbes and also malignant cells. Let's also understand what is pharmacy. Pharmacy refers to the art and science of compounding and dispensing drugs or preparing suitable dosage forms for administration of drugs to man or animals. What about toxicology? Toxicology is the study of poisonous effects of drugs and other chemicals with emphasis on detection, prevention, and treatment of poisonings. Next, we will look at how the drugs are named, or what are the categories of naming drugs. Number one is a chemical name. This constitutes the atoms or elements within the structure of a given drug. This is a typical chemical name for a drug, commonly known as the propanol. So we have 16 carbons, 22 hydrogen, chloride, and then nitrogen, and then 2 oxygen atoms. Another category of the name is the generic name, which is also known as non-proprietary name. In other words, this is a scientific name that is official and it's being recognized in many parts of the world for a certain drug. The last one is the brand name or proprietary name. This is commonly given by manufacturer. So a manufacturer decides to name a particular chemical depending on the brand identity. For example, we have Duralane and Dositon. They all refer to propranolol. In the next, we will look at the compendia or drug compendia. Compendium is a comprehensive collection of information about drugs used by healthcare professionals for clinical guidance. Examples are pharmacopoeias, formularies, and then we have the Martindale, and then we have the PDRs, the Physician's Desk Reference. For Pharmacopoeia, it's official book that shows how the medicines are being manufactured and tested, and there are very many examples of pharmacopoeias for US and for British. For formularies is actually just a list of medicine with instructions on how they should be used. Examples are national formulary and hospital formulary. For a Martindale is a big book that gives information about medicines around the world. So those medicines that are widely used around the world, they have a specific big book that contains the information. Example is the complete drug reference. So next one is the PDR. PDR is a doctor's book referenced to US, which the health professionals use for drug prescription and also to get some details about a given drug. Let's also look at drugs depending on their prescriptions. So now here we have three categories again of how drugs are classified depending on the reference of prescription. We have prescription drugs. These are the drugs that require a medical officer to determine the usage by giving prescriptions. And we also have category number two, non-prescription drugs. These are commonly the over-counter drugs which people use, and they have them without necessarily getting a prescription from a doctor. So they usually safe for self use. Then we have category number three. According to prescription, we have orphan drugs. These are drugs that are used for rare diseases. A typical example is the ivacaftor. We know that cystic fibrosis is a condition that affects a very small population. So the drug that is used for the treatment of cystic fibrosis is ivacaftor, and it's one of the orphan drugs that we have. Then next, we are going to look at the routes of drug administration. What are the ways that health professionals use to deliver drugs into the system of a patient? The two major categories or the two major routes of drug administration are local routes, and then we have the systemic routes. For the local routes, the drug acts at the site of application. For the systemic routes, the drug is absorbed into the bloodstream and then delivered by the cardiovascular system to the site of action. The choice depends on drug, desired action, as well as the patient's condition. We're going to go a little bit deep at the local routes. Local routes can be topical, whereby the drug is applied on skin or mucosa. They can also be deeper tissues, like intra-articular between the bones or joints, and then we have the intrathecal inside the spinal cord. And then it can also be directly into the arteries, the intra-arterial infusions. So, having looked at the local routes, let's also look at systemic routes. Oral, through the mouth, the drug is swallowed into the GI. It's usually safe, convenient, and it has a very slow onset. Then you have sublingual. The drug is placed under the lungs, sorry, under the tongue, and it's rapidly absorbed into the system. This method or this route usually bypasses the liver because the drug is not metabolized inside the liver, but it's absorbed directly into the capillary and into the tissues. Then you have rectal as one of the systemic routes. This is a route that is suitable for patients who vomit out drugs, and sometimes the unconscious patients. Uh, it leads to a partial liver bypass. Then you have cutaneous, which is also known as the transdermal. It's very slow and it's steady in delivering the drug. Then you have inhalation as one of the systemic routes. So this one is applied in the respiratory system in most cases. That is very rapid. It's rapidly effective via the lungs. A common application is in anesthetics and also bronchodilators. Then you have nasal. In nasal, there's peptide absorption. A typical drug is desmopressin, and this route also results to bypass of the liver, which means the drug is not metabolized inside the liver. And next, we are going to look at parental routes. Parental routes are routes that do not involve GI, the gastrointestinal system. So it's outside the intestine, and most specifically by injection. So injection routes usually bypass the gastrointestinal tract. And we have some advantages. It's very rapid, it's precise, and it's usually applied for emergencies. One of the disadvantages, well, is sometimes there's a pain, when a needle is injected into your body, of course, you're going to feel some pain. There are risks of infections when the needles or syringes that are applied are not sterilized. Of course, it's costly because it seems to be more expensive compared to the other routes like oral, and it requires some sort of sterilization. So, quick look at the types of parental routes. We have subcutaneous. In subcutaneous, there's a very slow absorption rate, uh, usually for self-use and also implants. A typical example where this is applied is insulin, heparin, and vaccines. Yeah? Then have intramuscular. In intramuscular, there is a moderate absorption of the drug, yeah, like depoforms. So this is used in terms of vaccines, antibiotics, and hormones. Then you have intravenous. One of a good feature of this intravenous route is it induces a very immediate effect. It's very, very precise in terms of dosing. So it's usually applied for emergency drugs, fluids, and anesthesia. Then you have intradermal, which is very slow. It has a local effect. So this is commonly applied. It's commonly applied in diagnostic tests and BCG vaccines. Up to this far, we've just taken a very quick introduction and overview uh, on medical uh, pharmacology and also the routes of drug administration. So I have a challenge for you here. Let's look at this question together and give me the possible responses for this question, the most suitable answer in the comment section. We will discuss that in the comment section, and then we will see what is going to be the right or the most appropriate answer for our question. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end of this video. I really appreciate. Yes, you've made it to the end of this video. I hope you learned something from this. And if you did, kindly support this by commenting, sharing, and subscribing to my channel so that I can keep sharing such content and get to learn from one another. Until next time.